All right, another good morning. The date today is the 21st of February 2023. The time is 8:15 in the morning. I am doing CMY2601 current risk perspectives. I'm doing learning unit 1.8. This video is for me only, just to be able to fast track my studies. Okay, let's begin. As you can see, the contents there. It's a very short learning unit. It's introduction, crime in homogeneous communities, crime in heterogeneous communities, conclusion, self-assessment questions, and self-assessment answers. All right, learning outcome. After the completion of this study unit, you should be able to distinguish between the communities with homogeneous and heterogeneous cultures. Discuss the crime phenomenon in homogeneous and heterogeneous cultures. Assessment methods. After completing the study unit, you should be able to answer diverse multiple choice questions to demonstrate your understanding and knowledge of the study material. Introduction. Criminal law, that is the set of laws that determines which actions or failure to perform actions are criminal, is a social phenomenon linked to a specific community. An action, for instance, the removal of someone's property without his or her permission, is regarded in the Western communities as a crime of theft. In certain traditional communities, the same action is regarded as permissible if the person who took the property really needed it. All social groups impose certain restrictions on their members. These restrictions will only be obeyed if the individual can identify with them and understand their meaning and importance for the healthy existence of the community. Clearly, therefore, legislation and its application will be clearer and more readily understandable to individual members of the group in a homogeneous monoculture rather than a heterogeneous multicultural community. All right, let's move on. Crime in homogeneous communities. The more homogeneous a community is, the closer it is traditional custom and values its legislation and legal rules will be. The individual members of the community will be more willing to obey the laws because they believe in them. The sociology literature tends to emphasize crime within a social context, social disorganization, subculture, and social control theories. These theories suggest that crime increases when a community level of sociality control is weakened. Two factors affect the level of social control within a community, namely the degrees of racial and ethnic homogeneity as well as religiosity. Within the context of racial and ethnic homogeneity and social disorganization theory suggests that cooperative social relationships are the result of a feeling of being connected to others in a traditional community. A subculture is defined as a group that has adopted its own principles and tenets within a traditional community. This type of group is a result of community members who do not feel accepted by and connected to a conventional society. Social control theory reasons that individuals are less likely to engage in crime when they feel a strong connection to a traditional society. One common thread among these three theories of criminal activity is the degree of racial and ethnic homogeneity within a community. A community that is racially and ethnically homogeneous and is therefore similar in beliefs, norms, culture, should experience less criminal activity. Rawich M.W. and Housen R.M. 22nd of August 2008, Crime and Community Heterogeneity, Race, Ethnicity and Religion. Available on this website, and it was accessed on the 10th of April 2018. Low crime figures in Japan illustrate how strongly the community identifies with the criminal law. Until recently, Japan was a homogeneous society oriented towards the group rather than individual. Cultural differences play part in causing crime in Japan. The Japanese know what is expected of them in particular circumstances and what reactions to expect. The community is therefore regulated informally and well. The people traditionally have very strong ties with their families, employers, and the communities in which they live. This creates a safe environment and guarantees success. In December 2011, for example, the number of crimes in Japan between January and December dropped by 8.9% compared to the previous year. Kodyo, December 2011, in Unknown Crime in Japan, Low Crime Rates, Honest Society, Murders, Ropingi, the Elderly and Foreigners. Available on this website, accessed on the 11th of August 2018. Proceed to interesting reading. This is an interesting reading about Japan. We move on. Activity 1. There were 1,099 murders in Japan in 2009, according to statistics from the National Police Agency, down 200 from previous year, and a third of the number in 1994. This is out of population of 129 million. In the middle of the worst recession since the war. See link below. Partly because Japanese are so unified and homogeneous, they accept and internalize social controls It is this attitude of obedience and impulse control that matters most in the low Japanese crime rate. Guns or not, the Japanese are simply the world's most law-abiding people. As a website, according to the Japanese firearm laws, besides the police and the military, the only other group that are allowed to possess guns are hunters, and that possession is strictly circumscribed. The police even check hunters' ammunition invented to make sure that no shell or bullet have been unaccounted for. After you have read through the statement above and links, list other possible reasons that may explain a low murder rate in Japan. Feedback, you should list the possible reasons to explain the low murder rate in Japan. All right. We move on. Crime in heterogeneous communities. In a heterogeneous community, it is practically impossible to ensure that legal rules or pieces of legislation include all the values and norms of all various cultures. This means that only some groups in the community will be able to identify with the prescription of the legislation. It is almost impossible for the rest of the community to make these formalization norms and values their own because the laws do not correspond with their own traditional practices. The norms and values of the dominant culture in the community are usually reflected in the laws, and the minority cultures therefore feel that they have been left out. Smith, 1994, page 1041. Drawing on data across 98 countries, Church and Laria, 2019, page 1, did a study on the nature of association between ethnic diversity and crime. The study has shown that high levels of ethnic and linguistic diversity correlate with a reduction in crime rates. It has suggested that police intervention, education experience, and openness, as well as law and order, are possible reasons for the results. The study further shows that high levels of ethnic diversity, when properly managed, could help reduce crime. Churchill S.A. and Lera E. 2019, Crime and Ethnicity Diversity, Cross-Country Evidence, Crime and Delinquency, SAGE. There is no simple link between immigration and crime. Most studies find that larger immigrant concentration in an area has no association with violent crime and overall weak effects on property crime. However, immigrant groups that face poor labor market opportunity are more likely to commit property crime. But this is also a disadvantage native groups. The policy focus should therefore be on crime reducing benefits of improving the functioning of labor markets and worker skills rather than on crime and immigration per se. There is also a case to be made by ensuring that immigrants can legally obtain work in the receiving country, since the evidence shows that such legalization programs tend to reduce criminal activity among the targeted group. Bell B. 2014, Crime and Immigration. Do poor labor market opportunities lead to migrant crime? Available on this website. Let's look at the example. Australia is a multicultural society in which 1 out of every 4 Australians is post-war immigrant or descendant from immigrants. There are 190 different ethnic groups and 90 different languages are spoken. There are 190 ethnic groups and 90 different languages are spoken. Ethnic groups in Australia: whites 92%, Asian 9%, Aborigine and other 1%. Here's a website. According to the University of Western Australia Crime Research Centre, the Aborigines make up less than 3% of the population, and they commit 20% of violent crime in Western Australia. As a website, the research center also found that 1 of the 5 assaults, 1 in 3 robberies, and more than 1 in 10 sexual offenses are interracial. About 93% of these involved Aboriginal offenders and non-Aboriginal victims. Interesting reading. According to the figures released by Australian Bureau of Statistics, the proportion of Australians born overseas continue to reach new heights, with over 28% of Australians being population born overseas. Conclusion: we can accept that legal regulations or laws of homogeneous societies will largely correspond with the community standards. Informal control will also play a greater role in those communities. The appearance and extent of crime in Japan is a good example of this. In a heterogeneous and multicultural society such as Australia, criminal law will seldom reflect community values as a whole. The norms and the values of the dominant culture are usually presented in the legislation. And then we have self-assessment. We have a few questions here. What is set of laws called which can determine which actions or failure to perform actions in criminal? Okay, there's the answer there. Okay, which country is known for a homogeneous, stable society? That is Japan. Which option below is a reason why all members of heterogeneous community cannot adhere to legislative prescription? Their traditional practices are not acknowledged. Low crime figures in Japan indicate how strongly the community identifies with criminal law. Okay, we are done with this. We can now most probably start another one. which is 1.9. Our the next in our studies.